You guys know I do fix tablets, right? This video is sponsored by CF Micro Repairs. More about them in a minute. So this is a Samsung tablet. It's an SM-T580. And the charging port is kind of messed up. Let me show you under the microscope. So you can kind of see that these pins are not doing too well, and the charging port is a little wonky on the inside. So we're gonna go ahead and pop the case open and grab the motherboard and change it. No word from the sponsor. Of course, this is my business, CF Micro Repairs, and we fix all sorts of stuff. Not just game consoles, but I love game consoles, so they get posted quite often. But I fix laptops, cell phones, do small data recovery jobs, and all sorts of soldering. So send me an email at chasefournierrepairs@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you, and we can get some stuff fixed. I don't know if you noticed this glitter on my shirt, but my daughter had a dress where the glitter just went all over in the washing machine, and so most of my clothes are covered in glitter now. Alright guys, I got the motherboard out. Let's go to the microscope and chase the fix. Alright, so here's the motherboard with the charging port here. And I have a brand new charging port right here. So we're gonna go ahead and get this charging port ready to go. Alright, so before we solder this, I want to put some foil tape around this little piece right here. That way we can kind of protect it from the heat as best as we can. Try to reflect all of that heat away because we're only changing this charging port. Alright, so we're going to add some flux here. Now flux is a paste that you add when you want to get the solder to flow a little bit easier. Now, my absolute favorite thing, and I feel like it's a necessity, is to turn on the fume extractor to save my lungs from dying prematurely. Add some solder to my iron here. What I'd like to do is I'd like to flow some of these pins here with some leaded solder. Now, leaded solder is actually going to melt at a lower temperature than the lead-free solder that's on the main motherboard. Maybe we can add some leaded solder to the top of this port and it'll help it melt a little bit easier, right? Maybe bring the heat into this port a little bit nicer. Okay, so right now I'm going to bring in the hot air and we're gonna just remove this port. The temperature we're using is 330 Celsius at an airspeed of 100. This port's about to come off the board pretty quick here. Add a little bit of flux here. Help that solder to flow, you already know. Maybe we can bring in some extra heat with our hot air to get that solder to go into that braid. Amazing. Perfect. Sometimes the iron alone is not enough to heat up these joints, and so we need to bring in the hot air as well. As you can see, we got quite a bit of old used flux here, and I'm going to add some isopropyl alcohol to the board, and we're going to go ahead and clean up all this gummy flux. Grab a couple of Q-tips here. This will clean it right up. Alright, the area is all clean. Let's install our new port. Alright, so I'm going to set it in here, just like that. Perfect. Alright, so now I flip the board around to the other side, and we're going to add a little bit of flux to these pins here, just like that. Apply a little bit of solder to our iron, and we're just going to go in here and touch these pins. We're going to solder them perfectly. Of course, they will look better than what came out of the factory, of course. Beautiful. Those are already starting to look super good. Alright, so now I flip the board around upside down because we're going to add some flux here to these legs and solder these in. Add a little bit of solder here. Right there. A little bit right there. A little bit right there. And there. Let's go ahead and flow these one more time. Perfect. Before we move on, we can clean up all this extra flux with some IPA, isopropyl alcohol. Just wipe off our board here. We'll want to make this nice and clean, or as good as we can get it. Look at these solder joints. They look amazing. Last but not least, I want to touch up the anchor points on the side here. I just want to add a little bit more solder to them. Perfect. Let's add a little bit of solder to this back side here. Perfect. Add a little bit of solder there. A little bit of solder here. Alright. Now we can take some isopropyl alcohol, do our final touch up with the brush, clean it up a little bit more with a Q-tip. So if we take a look at our joints here, you can tell that they're soldered perfectly. So the cool thing about adding some extra solder to the outside is that it actually solders in these legs here on both sides that holds this black metal piece in. So it's got double protection. So this is going to be much better than what came out of the factory. Now that our charging port is done, let's go ahead and put this back in the housing and we're going to test it. It is charging and charging at 5 volts at 1.56 amps. So it's working. So that goes to show I don't just fix game consoles, but I also fix tablets, cell phones, laptops, and other motherboards. We even had in a breathalyzer one time that had a dead short. That was crazy. I wish I would have recorded it, but unfortunately, just you can't record all the repairs because you got to get them in and out when you're in a shop. If you like this video, I have another video where I did better work than $1 million company. If you'd like to check that video out, you can check it out right here. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and have an awesome day.